Morning guys, welcome back to my garden. My name is Kiara. If you're new, feel free to call me Q. Today is May 15th and we are going to do the 8th week of our spring garden tour. So what I thought would be a really cool idea to do this year is to record kind of each season of our garden and what's going on. So we're in spring right now. I'm gonna try to do summer and fall, and I might do winter. Winter's kind of slow for us, but we'll see. Anyway, that's the plan. And because these tours tend to be kind of long, I am going to focus on what's new. I'm going to show like a few really quick updates on what's gotten bigger, what's changed since last week. So let's get started. All right, to our usual starting spot. We have this hedge of blackberries. So they go all the way down here, past these posts here. Let me see if I can give you a better look. There we go. So we have this whole big hedge of thornless blackberries, and they are starting to flower. So last week we had a couple flowers open, but this week they're really taking off. So this is exciting because it means we're going to have blackberries soon. And then next to them we have this green stalk. So last week I actually switched the location of these green stalks because I noticed that this location was getting less sun than the next one, which I'm going to show you. So this was an experiment for seeing if we could extend the season on cool weather crops. And everything in here is kind of bolted at this point. So I'm trying to figure out what I want to put in here next. I think it might be flowers. But if you have any suggestions on what I should grow in my green stalk next, let me know. And then here's our other green stalk. So this one is full of strawberries. We've had these strawberries for a couple years now, but they are new to this green stalk, so they're doing pretty well. And I moved them over here because this corner was getting more sun, and so I want to see how they do over here. One thing we've been working on a lot this week is just kind of cleaning things up and tidying them up, which I'm really happy about. So yesterday we worked on this. We cleaned up around our herb bed here. We still have pots that I need to empty out and stack up and stuff like that, but this is looking a lot better. And in these buckets we put very late potatoes, so we might not get anything out of it, but we noticed that a couple of these were actually growing volunteer potatoes anyway, like this one. This was, I guess, leftover from last year, and we had extra potatoes that were sprouting in the house, so we just decided to put them in buckets. They just got planted yesterday, so we need to water these, but they're overall doing fine. And then here's our herb bed. The green onion flowers are getting pretty cool. The sage is very happy. It's huge. We're gonna have to cut this back. I think I'm gonna do a bunch of preserving this because it's a little too big at this point, but it's really pretty and I love it. And then here we have chamomile in here, and then this is bolted cilantro or coriander, and we were going to cut this out, but we've noticed that a lot of ladybugs have been on here, and we've seen ladybug larvae on it too, so we wanted to just kind of leave it for a little while for them to get a chance to finish growing. But the flowers are really pretty. Oh, this is funny. Let me show you this. It has these really tiny beetles on it. I don't know if you can see that. See those little guys? So I've only ever seen these on chamomile before, and I've only grown chamomile one other time, but there are all these little beetles on the flowers. I don't know if they hurt anything. I don't know what they are, but unless I know it's for sure a pest and it's damaging the plants, I just kind of tend to leave stuff like that. And like I said, these plants we were gonna take them out anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. And over on this side, we have another volunteer potato from last year. Up next, we have our apricot tree. So we do have sections of it where we have aphids, so there's kind of a lot going on this tree right now. But we've also seen a lot of ladybugs. So actually, here's one right there. And there is one right there. So we found, I want to say like 7 ladybugs on here yesterday. And so we're okay to just kind of like leave them to their food source. And we have rubbed off some of these aphids. There's still a lot, but they're not covering the whole tree yet. So we're just going to let the beneficials come in and help out. And then right next to the apricot tree is a peach tree. Now this tree is really sick. We got leaf curl on it pretty bad. Let's come in here so you can see it. So you can see like a lot of the leaves are dying and falling off and stuff like that. So this tree does not look great, but we were told that there's not much we can do about it now because we noticed it after the leaves had all already come out for the season, but we were told that it shouldn't affect the fruit too much. We've also thinned the fruit just to kind of give the tree more, or less I should say, to give the tree less to focus on this year. But it's still covered in fruit. The fruit is getting bigger. And what we'll do next year in the fall and winter is we will treat this tree and hopefully be able to kind of rehab it over the winter time while it's dormant, and then we'll see what it looks like next year. But it's still loaded with a lot of fruit, especially at the top. It's actually starting to, some of the branches that we couldn't reach before are getting weighed down by the weight of the fruit, and so we're able to kind of thin them out more as the season goes on. So we'll see what happens with this tree, but this is what it looks like right now. All right, I backed up here so you can get the full effect of our grape arch. So there's 2 mature grapes over there, and then there's one that we planted over here. All of it is doing really, really well, and let me show you up close. This thing is, it's a lot of grapes. So I don't know if you can see, but there's clusters everywhere on this thing. So all of these clusters are grapes, and it's just loaded up. So I'm really excited about this. We're gonna get a lot of grapes. So my plan with this is we're gonna have a lot of like just table grapes for fresh eating, but I really want to juice a lot of them, and I want to try to make jelly. I don't know if this is the kind of grape you make jelly with, but I know the grapes taste good, and so wanted to give it a try and see if we like it. I've never actually made grape jelly before, but that'll be a fun thing to try and figure out. But yeah, this thing is glorious. Look at that. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put the camera down so that, and see if I can get this whole thing with me standing under it so that you can get an idea of just how big it is and just how full it is. So I am 5'5.5", and this is a 16-foot cattle panel that we folded into an arch. And so let me show you exactly what this thing looks like with someone underneath it. It's pretty cool. So yeah, that's the grape arch, and we love it. We're so happy that we decided to try this arch. Eventually we might want to build like a pavilion or something, and we had the idea of putting kind of like a seating area down here, like a really small bench or something like that, because the shade under here is really nice, especially since it gets so hot in our area. But it's just, I love it underneath here. This is great. And here's the other side of that arch. This is the grape that we put in, and it's doing really well. It's a lot younger than the other grapes on the other side, but it's never looked this good, and we're actually going to get grapes on this for the first time this year, which is really exciting. Here in this kind of like tomato cage that really, it's a pepper cage. They don't support tomatoes at all. I planted a watermelon at the base, and I only put this here so that we would remember exactly where it was and our dog wouldn't step on it or anything. But it looks like those seeds aren't going to come up. I tried to put them in a couple places, and none of them sprouted, so that's okay. It was just a test to see. But now I know. And that's a gigantic weed that I need to pull out. Here we have our lavender. It kind of started to look pretty bad when we had a ton of rain all at once and our weather got cold for about a week. But it's starting to make a comeback. So I think what I'm going to do is just clean it up a little bit and take off some of these kind of spent flowers right here just to rehab it a little bit. But overall, we've just left it and it's doing its thing. Here is our Meyer lemon tree that we had in a pot and we decided to put here, and it has been happy and flowering as well. So we may or may not let this produce fruit this year, but we haven't fully decided. But for right now, it looks really good and really healthy. Okay, up next, other citrus. So this is what we think is a navel orange tree. I mentioned in other videos that this tree was really sick when we moved here, and it didn't produce any fruit at all last year. And well, that's not true. We thought it didn't produce any fruit at all. And then randomly in December, we found a navel orange in the middle of it. And so we think it's a navel orange. We've done a lot to try and bring this tree back to health. And I think we're succeeding because let me show you what's happening with it now. So the first good sign that we had with this tree is it's been covered in blossoms, which is really great. But now you can see most of the blossoms are gone, but in their place, we have a ton of fruit. And you can even see, behind this blossom, there's more fruit here, there's more here. And so we'll see if these actually turn into oranges, and we might end up thinning the fruit on the tree, if so, just to kind of give it less to focus on. But you can see there's a lot of little potential fruit on this tree right now, and it didn't do anything last year, so this is really promising for us. The oregano that we put underneath this tree is also very happy. It's actually kind of a perfect spot for it because it gets shaded by the tree in the afternoon sun, which has worked out really well. Then right next to the navel orange, we have a clementine tree, or a cutie tree as I call it, and not much to report here. It's kind of looked the same for the last couple weeks, but it's covered in potential fruit also. Oh, and there is a ladybug larva. If you've never seen one before, that is a future ladybug, which is the weirdest thing. I don't know how that turns into a ladybug, but it does. To orient ourselves, the tree that I just talked about is right there behind me. I think what I'm going to do, because it's starting to get a little warmer now in the sun, I think what I'm going to do is reverse the order that we normally do and actually start on this side of the garden. This is usually the one we do last, but let's go ahead and do it first because the other side of the garden is still in shade. And so I want to finish this and stay in the shade as long as possible because this is where the sun shines first. Okay, first things first. Behind the garden, behind the beds, I should say, we put in this kind of tomato trellis along the fence. And all of these are doing really well. Even this little guy, which, it was really small when we put it in, and then I thought it died in the rain. It's making a comeback, so I'm willing to let anything live if it's a fighter. But all of these other tomatoes have, kind of doubled in size since we put them in about 2 weeks ago. So these two are Amish paste, and I think these two that one's the Amish paste also. This one is a super sweet 100, so is this one. These are cherry tomatoes. They're indeterminate cherry tomatoes, which means they'll go really tall for as long as the season goes. And then over here, I had a couple more aromas. And so these are paste tomatoes. They're determinate, so they're not going to get as tall. They're probably going to get 4 to 6 feet tall. And but they're looking pretty good overall. This one's gotten way bigger than when I planted it. So I'm really happy with how all the tomatoes are doing. And then there's a little marigold there on the end. Okay, now onto the beds. So just to kind of give you a sneak peek here. We have 3 4x16 foot beds, 3 4x8 foots, and then 3 more 4x16s on the other end. So we'll start here with this massive zucchini plant. This thing has been in for, I want to say, a month or so, but it's very, very happy in this corner. I give zucchinis a lot of room, and even then, I know that it's going to get way bigger than this. You can see here just one of these leaves compared to my hand. And then what I did is I planted sweet alyssum around each one of the plants so that they would do exactly this and kind of bush out underneath the plant as it got bigger. That right there is a weed. But I wanted the sweet alyssum to bush out underneath the plant as it got bigger to hopefully be a habitat for beneficial insects like ladybugs to help combat things like aphids, because we get aphids really bad here and they really do affect our zucchini a lot too. So you can see over here, there's another sweet alyssum here, and I'm not too worried about the plant covering it or anything because it'll just keep spreading and it'll spread around everything that's in this bed. These peppers, I tried to put them a good distance away from the zucchini, but it looks like they're still a little close. But as the season goes on, that might actually be a really good thing, because what I can do is trim the bottom leaves off of the zucchini, and then in the hottest part of the day, it'll actually give these pepper plants some shade. So we'll see if that works out or not. That was kind of my thought process here. Next to the zucchini, we have this is a dahlia. I don't know the variety. It was just a mixed pack and I grew them from seeds. So I have no idea what color it's going to be or anything, but I actually kind of like that. Here we have an okra. It's doing really well. It's a lot bigger from last week. And then the pepper plants. All the pepper plants in these beds are getting a lot of sun, and so they've really just darkened up in the last couple weeks, and they're starting to look really good. And one thing that I'm noticing here is they're getting a lot more leaves. And so what I'll do is I will actually pinch the tops of these plants so that they grow bushier instead of just like one stem like it is now. I want them to be bushier. And so what I'll do is I'll pinch the top, and this plant will start, like it's doing down here, growing more side shoots off the main stem, and they'll be able to support themselves better, and hopefully we'll get more peppers. So this is another okra. It looks like it's gotten eaten by a little bit by something. But we also had stuff that got damaged in the hailstorm and then the rain, but I mean, things are starting to pick up again. This is a weed. It's a cute weed, but it's a weed. Another pepper plant, another okra. But yeah, things in this bed are getting a lot bigger. Yeah, this pepper plant is totally ready to be pinched off. So I'll actually just like cut off somewhere up here and then let it bush out more as the season goes on. Here's a very happy marigold that's about to open. This is another zucchini plant. This is our second biggest one, but this one is looking pretty sick. So these top leaves, we turned it over and we didn't really see that much happening as far as like pests. So we had something that looked kind of like this happen in our last garden, and we couldn't figure out what it was. We tried to look it up, and there was just so many different opinions on what it could be. And some of those opinions were like, you have to pull that plant out immediately, and all of that kind of stuff. Well, we didn't end up doing that. And what we tried instead, one of the suggestions was to do a copper fungicide and to try that first and see if the plant got healthier. And we did that and it worked pretty well. And so what we're going to do with this plant first, just to see if we can figure out what this is that is making the edges, it's only a couple leaves too, but it's spreading a little bit. So there's more on this leaf back here and then there's a little here. We're going to try copper fungicide first and see if that does anything. And then we'll keep trying stuff and experimenting from there. But that is something that we've tried in the past. We had success with it and we have it. And so we always kind of like to try the least intense version of what we can do first, and then just kind of escalate from there. And then as a last resort, we will pull out a plant. But if it looks like this, like a lot of this plant is still really healthy. And so it looks like something that we might be able to revive. So we're going to try and revive it first. Next to the zucchini, I have a junior yellow sunflower that is about to open. These should be a lot bigger than this, but I mean, I'll take it. They're still really pretty. And I'm going to come around and put more seeds around the sunflowers and zinnia, or sunflowers and amaranth and all that stuff that's flowering now, so that we can potentially get successions in those same spots. Same thing with this amaranth right here. It's starting to flower. I do love these, and I'll take them at whatever size they are, but they do get really big. Last year we had some that were like 8 feet tall, and that's kind of what I was going for. So I'm going to put a couple more seeds down here and see if we can get them to be bigger as the season goes on, because my idea was for them to frame these trellises right here. The Armenian cucumber is happy and doing well. This one is, I think, a Telegraph Improved. Yeah, this is a Telegraph Improved. It's also doing really well. And then we have a zinnia here. And these peas shot up. So these were our experiment peas that we used to test soil. And most of them aren't doing very hot. You can see this one just died right here. But some of them are doing pretty well. So we'll see if we get peas off of these, or, you know, I might put something else here. I don't know yet. But for right now, they get to stay and they're happy. Over on this trellis, we have the same thing. In between these two trellises, I planted flowers. So these are straw flowers, and they've gotten a lot bigger in the last couple weeks. And then over there is a zinnia, and it's also gotten bigger. We have another Armenian cucumber. Now this one's really happy. It loves this spot. It got a little damaged. I think some of this was from the little hailstorm we had, and some of it is birds, but it's still looking really good, and I'm happy that it'll be reaching the trellis pretty soon. Here's another sunflower. Now this one is an Autumn Beauty sunflower, and it should be massive before it flowers. So this one's a lot taller than my juniors, but it's supposed to be bigger still. So this is another one where I'm going to put a couple more seeds at the base just to see if we can get more seeds later. Hi, buddy. What's wrong? Hi. Hello. You want to say hi? No? And then peppers. This is junior sunflower, and it's very pretty. I love these. I love sunflowers. There's a lot of damage and stuff too, but I mean, it's still a pretty flower. Right next to it is chamomile, and this smells amazing. I wish you could smell this. I grow chamomile just for the smell. Over here, these are Blue Lake pole beans. I keep saying Black Lake in all of my videos. They're Blue Lake pole beans, and they're starting to get to a pretty good size here. This is another amaranth, and it looks like the birds have just been going to town on this one, so this one might not make it, but that's okay. I'll just plant more. This is a spot where a butternut squash seed that was really old never came up, so I still have to plant something else here so that this side of the trellis isn't empty. And here we have oh no, these are Blue Lake pole beans. The other ones I showed you were noodle beans. So these are the Blue Lake pole beans. This is a honey nut squash. We really like growing these. And then there's another much healthier looking amaranth over here. So you can see this one hasn't really been damaged that much by birds or the hailstorm or anything. It's in really good shape. On the other side of that trellis, we have another honey nut. We have more Blue Lake pole beans, another sunflower. And this one has, you can see, a ton of heads on it. So there's one there, and then this one is 2. It's doing really well, and I'll show you what it looks like on the other side too. This is a yellow squash surrounded by sweet alyssum. Blank spot where there was a butternut that never came up. And then these are noodle beans. I really want to have a noodle bean arch right here, so hopefully that happens with all of these. And on this side of that same bed, this is Thai basil that's starting to flower, and I love these. We grow them a little bit for the culinary to put them in food, but for the most part, I will grow this just for the flowers. The bees and butterflies and everything love it. And you can see they have these just really pretty purple and white flowers. Here's a marigold that's been eaten to an inch of its life and probably pecked at by birds. Here's another junior sunflower that is opening up. Here we have various types of peppers, but you can see that some of them died, so there's holes like this now in the garden. And what I'm going to do with these is I think I'm just going to put peas in them, just like little bush beans, or not peas, yeah, bush beans in all of these kind of empty spots, just because it's something that'll fill up the spot quickly and give us more food. Oh, this is a marigold. I think this might be, let me see, does this tag? Oh no, that's different. I think this might be the sunshine orange marigold. This is the first one that's opened, so I'm not sure. And I've never grown this flower before, but that's a really pretty color. Here's another sunflower. This one is the most open, and it is glorious. Here we have various hot peppers, so jalapenos and poblanos, and then we have another, I think it's a yellow squash down there. Next in the middle here we have our 3 4x8 foot beds, and these are all my cut flower experiment. I've never grown cut flowers before like this. Most of these flowers I've never grown before, and I've never really grown anything in rows this intensely like this. I like to kind of mix everything together, and so this is the first time I've done this. But let me start on the end here with tomatoes. These are Roma tomatoes, and they look fantastic. I was a little worried about them with this straw, and I have a video on kind of my decision making here too, which I'll link below. But these tomatoes look great. I'm super happy with these. So the reason why we decided to put these 3 tomatoes here was mostly because I already had this T-post here from last year. So we grew tomatoes here last year, and they didn't do really well. They went in super late. The plants were really sick. They struggled. All of those, it was just like a mix of not great things. But this year, I decided to put these Romas here with these T-posts. These are 6-foot T-posts. And the idea here is going to be to do a Florida weave trellising system on these, which when I do that, probably be next week. I'll do a video on it so you can see just like the different ways that we are trellising our tomatoes. These are planted here, and they look way better than the tomatoes that we planted here last year. So I'm hoping that they continue to do well. But so far, so good. These are cosmos that I have yet to pinch. So they're pretty tall at this point. These are, I want to say probably like 2.5, 3 feet tall. And I kind of left them at this point because we're going to have a party next week, and it's just a little more color and a little more vibrancy in the garden. But these will definitely be pinched down too, so that these plants get more bushy and we get more flowers as the season goes on. This is the bed that we have, as you can see, just like insane amounts of grass coming out of it. And this bed has 2 layers of some sort of like barrier for the grass, but it's still really intense. And so we're going to have to tarp this bed more likely in the fall. But for right now, I'm just kind of using it as is. And this bloomed. This is new. This bloomed this week. This is larkspur. I've never grown this before. I've never actually seen this before. And we got this plant from an event that we went to. We got it for free. And it's beautiful. And purple is my favorite color, so I'm all about these. In this middle bed, we have the same deal here. We have tomatoes on the end. These are golden nugget tomatoes or gold nugget. They're kind of like they look kind of like a big cherry tomato, but they're determinate also. And these plants are doing really well here as well. We might have planted a golden nugget in this spot last year and it didn't do very well, but it was our best producing tomato last year out of the ones we had. And these will need to be trellised soon too because they're starting to tip over a little bit and get a little floppy. And then I have some zinnias that are getting eaten. Got a lot of holes in them, but they also are still alive and they're trying to flower, so I'm giving them a chance. And then here we have more cosmos that have bloomed. Like I said, I left these specifically because we're having a party next week. But once the party's done and once these flowers are done, I'm gonna trim these also. And then on the end here, I have snapdragons, which it's not supposed to be the season for them anymore. And from what I read, it's entirely too hot, but they seem to be doing well so far. So we'll see how they do as the 90-degree weather and 100-degree weather that we're about to get in the summertime goes on. And then this is the last flower bed that we have for cut flowers, and it's also the most eaten. So right here I have marigolds that have been, you can tell, just eaten down to nothing. I think this is actually birds. And these are dahlias. They look a little bit better, but not much. You can see there, that's pretty bad. And then there were a couple things here that died. I think these were basils and they just didn't make it. And have some more snapdragons. These look the best out of all the snapdragons, but that makes sense to me because this actually gets a lot of shade from our big trees right here. And these look pretty happy. So if they're happy, I'm happy. And then next to them we have horrible looking amaranth that is similarly just being eaten alive. And then these are zinnias and they don't look great either. This one managed to flower, but it is not the beautiful zinnia that I'm used to. Next up, we have our last three 16-foot beds. There's not much that's new in these, so I think I'll do them pretty quick. But let me show you what is new. So on the end here, we have a zucchini plant that is still very new. These three beds actually got planted out about a week and a half after the other 16-foot beds. So everything over here is smaller, but it's kicking. And then let's see, it's peppers. These peppers, you can see they're starting to darken up really nicely too. They were very yellow when I put them in here, and they're starting to get a lot more leaves, which is great. But they're just smaller than the ones on the other side, and that's okay because they went in later. There's a very happy chamomile. This is a very happy tomatillo, which I've never grown before. Well, that's not true. We grew one last year, and we found out the hard way that you actually need 2 tomatillo plants for them to actually fruit. And so I have another little guy right here that is also a tomatillo, and both of them survived, which is great. I had a third one here. It was too small when I put it in, so it did not make it, but that's okay. I didn't really expect it to. Down here we have cherry tomatoes, and these have gotten a lot bigger since I put them in. So these are super sweet 100s. We have 4 of them here. So, and then there and there. And these were itty bitty when I put these in a couple weeks ago, and they are looking really happy here. And these we're going to trellis up because they're indeterminate. They're going to get really tall. We're going to trellis these up with string, and I'll show that when we do it. The garlic is overall still doing really well. We're just waiting for it to finish up. With garlic, you want to wait until the lower like 3 leaves are dying back in yellow like this. And we're about at the point where they have 1, some of them have 2 yellow leaves at the bottom, so we're almost there, but we want to give them a little bit more time. It's down here. I interplanted to give us some time on these trellises. This is a honey nut. Let's see, I don't see anything yet. I'm actually surprised this isn't up yet. So I'll give it another week and then I might need to replant that spot. These are Blue Lake pole beans that I put over here, and they're looking really happy. These beds get a lot more shade because of the trees and because our neighbor has a building that shades them in the afternoon, so they all look pretty good. Here's some more on the other side of that trellis. Here's some more Blue Lake pole beans that are starting to sprout. This is a Cosmo that, actually I really like that white color. It's really pretty. Down here on this side of the trellis is probably supposed to be another honey nut. Yeah, nothing's up yet. There's a little Thai basil in the middle there. When I take the peas out and the garlic out, those plants should start to get bigger and need the trellises. Is my plan. We'll see if it works out that way. And nothing's come up on this trellis yet, so I might need to replant that one also. There's a very happy amaranth over here. And so yesterday I ended up picking a ton of peas, and these grow so fast. So these were not ready yesterday, and they're a lot bigger now. So I think by tomorrow we'll have more peas to pick, which is kind of crazy. I'm really happy that we ended up getting so many. This is a tomato plant over here that I interplanted. These two, there's two over here. I got them from the farmer's market. This one is a Hungarian heart, and this one over here is a yellow brandywine. And so I'm gonna trellis these up pretty soon here. They definitely are ready to be pruned and things like that, and they're flowering, so it's time for them for sure to be trellised up. Here I have more peppers that are overall looking really good. Same thing, these are eggplants. They went in really puny and they're still surviving, so I'm happy about that. Here we have a honey nut. This one came up and it looks really good. And over here, what is this? Oh, this is a yellow watermelon. I put 2 seeds here because I wasn't sure if it would actually come up or not. So maybe what I'll do once they get a little bit bigger, not much bigger, but a little bit bigger, I'll actually move one of these to another trellis that's empty so that they can both survive. So the thing about things like watermelon, squash, yeah, it's basically just like the squash and melons. So that's like your zucchini, all that kind of stuff. They don't love their roots disturbed. And sometimes when you do try to transplant them, they either stunt for a really long time. Like if you buy them from a nursery or something like that, a lot of times they'll stunt when you actually put them in your garden, which means they'll just grow really, really, really slowly. Or sometimes they just flat out don't make it. But I always like to try. So that's one of the things that I do in my garden a lot. I'm just like, I know that this is not ideal for this thing, but I want to try it anyway. And the reason I would move one of these is because this is not enough space for both of them to grow. And so I would have to cut one down and kill it anyway. So I can just, I can cut one off and kill it, or I can try and move it and see if it survives, even if it's maybe stunted. But that's not always the case either. So I'd rather give it a chance because I might get 2 plants and they might grow wonderfully throughout the season and we might get food off of them. But I know that if I just, hack one down, that one's gone. And so I always like to try and move things first just to see if I can, if it's something that I want more of. So some plants I don't bother. But things like this, I would love to have another watermelon plant, and so I'm going to try and move that first before just giving up on it, because I could kill it right now, or I could give it a chance to live, and it might die, but it might live too, and we might get really awesome fruit off of it. Here we have another Autumn Beauty sunflower that came up. So this one I put in as a seed, and I think as long as the birds don't eat it, it's going to be a lot healthier than the other ones that I put in as starts, just because my starts weren't very, very healthy. So I'm excited for this little guy. And then here is our zucchini, I think. Oh no, yellow squash. This is a yellow squash. They seem to grow a little bit slower than the zucchini overall and be kind of smaller plants, but happy about that. Now this bed has a big difference. So yesterday I pulled out all of the carrots that we had growing in this area right here, and so you can see there's still some peppers that I'd interplanted before. So there's one there, and then there's this poor guy here that got eaten a lot, but those were growing in the middle of all those carrots that I had. So this is a blank space. I'll probably put bush beans here also, we'll see. But the rest of these peppers are looking really good and really green. Here's oh, this is new. Here's another yellow watermelon that came up, which is really exciting. I didn't know if those seeds were any good or not. So it looks like the black watermelon seeds that I had are not good, but these yellow ones are. Over here is another blank spot. What was this? Honey nut. Okay, I'll give it another week or so and then replant that. And then here's sunflower right here. There's peppers that look really happy. And then this is our biggest pea bush. And you can tell again, these all were too small to pick yesterday, and I think they're going to be ready tomorrow. So peas grow really fast, which is great. And then underneath here are tomatoes. There's a couple really tiny tomatoes. You can see there's one right there that I put under here to interplant, but these are just crowding them out too much. You can see there's another one here that's actually getting eaten at this point. And so I need to either cut some of these plants back, tie them back something so that these tomatoes can get a little bit more sun, because you can see this one on the end here. This one isn't shaded as much, and it's still really small and, you know, kind of floppy, but it's significantly bigger than the other ones. This is more of what I want. On the other side of those peas, we have a zucchini that I started, and it is, or is this a zucchini? Yes. And this one's doing really well over here. There's a little, this is either a habanada or a scotch bonnet, but it's really happy over here too. And then, yeah, the rest of this bed is just peppers interplanted and a couple flowers. Here is the second in-ground tomato trellis that we put up. These are all Roma tomatoes, so they're determinate. They're going to get about 4 to 6 feet tall. And then we have them on this cattle panel that's 4 by 16, and they're doing really well. They're very happy here. These plants are, I want to say, like 3 times as big as when I put them in. And then on the end here, I had planted another one of those black seedless watermelons, and it looks like it has not come up yet either. So yeah, maybe those seeds are just bad. All right, so that's the end of the garden tour for this week. There were a couple things I didn't show you that I normally do, which would be our lime tree and our 3 apple trees. We have a gala apple and 2 Honeycrisp apple trees. And the reason I didn't show those just because they look exactly the same as they did last week and the week before that and the week before that. So at this point, it's kind of the update is the tree is still there, which is great. So anyway, I haven't shown those, but they're doing pretty well. They're young trees. They're not producing much fruit yet or anything like that, and so they're basically just like living their best lives and trying to get them established. So anyway, that's the tour for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. What we're doing in the next week is just a lot of cleanup. We've been doing that in the, not so much in the garden, but just in the backyard in general. We've been doing a lot of cleanup projects. I'm going to take you along with the other things that we're doing, just because I think it's really important to also show, you know, what it takes to keep a garden looking nice. Ours does not always look nice. We kind of are trying to build it up in sections. And now we're at the point where we can do more and more maintenance sections so that overall it'll look more put together. So that's a whole process too. But anyway, I'm going to take you along for that if you're interested in seeing those videos and just kind of seeing like what goes into it, all of the work that we put into our garden. I hope that you enjoyed this tour. Thank you so much for joining me in my garden today, and have a wonderful rest of your day. happy growing. I'll see you next week. Bye.